exciting. We're getting to the blue layer. So we started with no layers, then a nice pretty flesh layer, then a golden yellow layer, and then we're going to do a blue layer. So this baby has had a lot of blue shading. We're not going to go through all of this. That's going to take a lot more time than we have, but we are going to do basics. And with the basics, you are going to get a really pretty baby. No worries at all. Let's start off with the palette. And let's see if I can show this to you without spilling everything. This is going to be our mottling, our wash. We're going to put this on with one of these sponges. It's just a makeup sponge. Took a pair of tweezers, pulled out a bunch of sponge and made holes. Not rocket science. There's no art to it. It's just random, and it's actually fun and relaxing. I think I showed you before that I keep a bowl of these sponges. I use them forever and ever. They don't really wear out all that quick. And this is the mottling juice. We will talk about that in a bit. This is the vein blue. It probably came in your Genesis starter kit. We're going to use that for making veins. And this I just wanted to throw in for fun. This is periwinkle. This is a color that I make, and sometimes it looks a little more bluey or a little less bluey or a little more purpley depending on what day of the week it is. Let's just keep it simple. You don't want to get overwhelmed and throw in the towel. I think the whole objective here is to make a nice baby and to feel good about it. And every time you make a baby, you'll try more new things, and we'll make more videos with other techniques and stuff. So let's start with a baby that doesn't have any veins. It's naked. It has had, whoops, I can't use that one. Let's use this one. That one didn't have its yellow one yet. So here's my lid. I a lot of times use my lid, but I'm going to use my plate so that I can show you. Here's a brush that I'm going to use. Some people like tiny little squiggly veins. Some people like big thick veins. You can do both. This brush is just an eyeliner makeup brush. That's what I'm going to use. I'm going to get a tiny bit of this paint thinner because I don't want to use too much of this blue. I don't want it to be so dark that it looks like I colored these veins on with a Sharpie. And I will make a Sharpie video. I have an issue with people using Sharpie on Reborns. Just don't do it. That's not what we need to do. Not even alternative. Nope, nope, just no Sharpie. No Sharpie. I know it's tempting, but don't do it. Say no to the Sharpie. So here we go. For veins, this is about where I'm at. It's just some vein blue and some thinner. It's dripping, but it's dripping slowly down that plate. It's not too thick, it's not too thin, and it's not too dark. Remember, start off light and build up, because taking blue off is a drag. Let's start at the back of the head. This baby, I was experimenting with some creasing. Just ignore that. We're making a tree. Here's the trunk of the tree. Always wiggles, never straight lines. Everything's wiggle wiggle. That's actually a straight wiggle, which is a no-no, but I wasn't paying attention. And then that tree is going to have some branches. And then off of those branches, it's going to have some smaller branches. And each branch gets a little bit smaller branch. And this should just vary. It should be fun. It should be relaxing. There's not a whole lot to worry about with this. And I'm probably putting on more veins than I would normally, but I just kind of want to give you an idea of how veins branch out. If you turn it upside down, it looks like roots in the ground. Now, before that dries, I'm going to take a sponge, and I'm going to do something I call tops and tails. So wherever you started veining and wherever you ended veining, you're going to pat off any clue that you were there. Now, the illusion that you get is those veins are under the skin. If you can see the tops and the tails of this, it looks like you painted them on, and people can tell, oh, that's where the brush started, that's where the brush stopped. We don't want that. We want to give the illusion that these veins are sometimes under the skin and sometimes at the surface a little bit more. And so we're going to get all the tips and tails off. Just blend them down. And then before this dries too much, but while it's still just a tiny bit wet, we're going to pounce the rest of those veins. And what we're doing is turning them into what I think looks like vein shadows. And you're saying, hey, I went through all that work and now I'm just taking all this off. Well, that's kind of reborning, especially with Genesis paint. We're putting a lot of paint on and we're taking a lot of paint off. And that is what they look like. I'm going to do a little up front. Now, if you're just starting, word of advice, stay away from the face for right now. That's a different video, and we'll work on that a different day. But right now, let's just do the head, just because the nature of blue is to be strong. And I think that once you feel comfortable with veining and you've got it and you know where you want the veins to be, then you can move on to veining in places that are going to be highly visible. You'll have more confidence. Right now, we're just going to vein up this baby and get to the limbs. So here we go again, right by the ear. Little trees, squiggles, everything branching off. We're going to get the tops and the tails. Now, you don't have to treat one side exactly the same as the other side. We are not perfectly symmetrical beings. We do have, most of us, the same stuff on one side as we have on the other, but believe it or not, it's not in the exact same place and it's not the same size and the same color. I think that makes us look interesting and unique, and it's the same with these babies. We're not making factory babies, we're making unique babies. And we want some balance, just like in a painting. We want some balance and some composition. There we go. Boy, I've got such bright light in here today. There, that's a little bit better. Just barely there are veins. Later on, we'll cover some veins in other places, but for right now, I think that's really cool. Now let's do an arm and a leg. You know, you don't have to put veins on arms and legs. Some people don't like veiny babies, and that's okay. I go around the ankle bone, and I avoid creases, because once that blue gets in the creases, it's really hard to get off. You can get it off using a toothpick, but it's just going to be a pain. Might as well just avoid the creases altogether. Just a little tiny Charlie Brown tree there. Not much to it. And again, same thing with the head. Get the tops and the tails off and pat those veins down. Turn them into little shadow trees. That sounds like something Bob Ross would say, doesn't it? Well, I guess he says happy trees, but you know what I'm talking about. And this blue is stubborn, I tell ya. And there you go. A little veiny ankle. You can do the same thing on the inside. Again, I go around that ankle bone. You don't have to. I just don't like the way it looks on there. For me, I think the added realism, just that little bit of veining does, really makes a difference, and I really like it. So I do put veins on ankles and on wrists. And another place you can put veins, ta-da, is on the tops of the feet. You don't have to. It's not necessary. But if you feel moved to, it's just a couple of little Y's at the top of the foot. And then once again, just pounce them in. And we're done. We're done with a foot. And let's try a hand. Hand, same basically as the ankle, except we're going to go inside the wrist here. And ta-da! Just a kind of little baby tree. Doesn't have to be that big a deal. And we're going to pat it down. Now, I'm gonna do a little tiny bit of shading. You don't have to do this. Again, this is kind of an advanced move, but I think that if you're feeling comfortable with it, we'll just do it. We can get into it more in another video, but we have a little time, so let's do it. This is the periwinkle. It's titanium and some vein blue. We're not going to use a lot of it, and if you're a beginner and you want to give this a try, you don't have to. You'll still get a good baby even if you don't. I go under eyes, right around here by the nose, a little bit under that chin, sometimes above that eyebrow bone, and at the temples. I'm doing it darker than I normally would, just so that you can see the landmarky places I might put it. And I might put a little bit down that little, what is that called between, under your nose? It's not a frenulum. I've got to look that up and find out what that is called. I should know that. And then I'm gonna get some paint thinner and make another puddle on another part of my plate and get that brush a little bit wet and just kind of rub it in there a little bit. I know this looks messy and silly, but it works in the end. Now with blue, make sure that you do not get it in creases. It looks so dirty and you'll just be digging it out with a toothpick. Now I am just going to rub this in a bit. I don't really want to see it all that much. Again, just kind of this little bitty, almost gray shadow in these places. Don't feel like you have to push yourself to do this part. You don't. I just figured while we were here, might as well. And all I'm doing is kind of blending and taking that blue down. I don't want to see where this stops, where this begins. It's just shaded. And I'm going to take off all that excess. Again, putting the paint on, taking the paint off. I did this super thick for reference, and now I'm kicking myself for doing that because it's a little bit hard to get off, but we'll be fine. Okay, so now that we have all the veins done and any blue shading, if we want to do any blue shading, we're going to do some mottling. Again, we're going to take that mottling sponge that we plucked out, and let's get a big brush to transfer some of the blue mottling to the plate so you can see it. Remember, this is super light. This is like watercolor. It's going to be drippy. And that's my blue mottling right there. See how drippy it is? And see how translucent it is? And even when we get it on the sponge, it's going to be even less blue, because we're not going to put it on very thick. Here we go. I'm going to brush some of this blue onto my sponge, get it nice and loaded up. Now, I don't want to take a loaded up sponge and start pouncing it on a baby, because if the color's not right, I'm in trouble. So I'm going to test it out on my paper towel, and that looks pretty good to me. I'm just going to go around the baby, and I'm going to apply it just like this. Oh my goodness, we had a little drip. And you want to make sure that you are going around in different patterns, because you don't want it to look like cheetah spots. That's the only way that I can describe it. We just want it to look like there are these little tiny veins under that skin, and then we want to have that little bit of blue undertone there. Now it's going to look stronger when it's wet. When it dries, it's not going to look as deep. And I will give you an example. Here's a baby with no blue. Here's a baby with blue. You can see that slight gray almost. Now here is a baby that's already been mottled after it's dried. You can't see all of that. It evaporates off and it doesn't look as deep. Now this may not be as blue as you would like it, but that's okay. You can do another layer after you bake, but wait till after you bake and see what happens. But this will turn into this, and I think that's pretty cool. And so at this point, we're gonna pop it in the oven, 265 for 6 minutes. And when we come back,